Hey guys, still here and welcome back to Wargame. Today, one's in harbour with naval, in case you're wondering, and we are going to see some ships in the meanwhile, but that's going to take a while, and we are first going to be following Owner of Israel. He's going to be playing a very dangerous game. He's going to be taking an armoured deck into Delta. Now, an armoured deck on one's in harbour is already quite a dangerous game, but taking it into an urban area that can get shot at from every angle, where tanks are pretty easy prey, that's a whole different league of its own. He is going to have support from the middle, / supporting the middle, where we have Wax, Kasserik and Collared Panther. Where the other players are going, I don't exactly know. They might not have marked up, or they might be communicating in chat or Discord, so it's hard to tell what the guys are doing. Now, Owner of Israel is using an Israeli armored deck. That gives him access to the very, very nice Merkava 3B. Unlike most super heavy tanks, this thing also has a grenade launcher, which is a really neat feature in case you're dealing with infantry. And let's say the Israeli deck as a whole is more geared towards urban conflict. It has more armor on APCs, it has more grenade launchers. I believe that in real life the Israeli tanks are more survivable in the sense that they have an extra escape hatch. The Merkavas, relative to the other, let's say, Western nations and their tanks. So that survivability and grenade launchers and, well, mostly armor is going to come in very, very handy here. Because if you're going to take these units into an armored into an urban conflict, you're going to need it. He is, however, not really getting a lot of support from other players, or at least not that we know of. And consider that Red 4 has all that excellent infantry in the form of Commandosi. It has potentially the Panzerjägerie, depending on what nations there are. Those guys have the Appalachians with their very high AP charges. This Merkava is going to get tested pretty bad. It has 21 frontal armor. That's a lot of armor. But if you got a couple of infantry squads that keep firing at it, then, well, good luck. Now, towards the middle, we have, of course, the usual infantry on infantry that's about to happen. Unfortunately for blue, or actually unfortunately for red, because red missed most of the targets. These guys were just offloaded with their Corps Mariniers and Genietroepen, but that could have very easily wiped out a good number of them. Over here, we have Collared Panther, again with Corps Mariniers. And I believe that's not the only thing that we have over here. Yeah, also the Stoottroepen. And these are going to be taking up against what seems to be BMP-1s, BMP-2s, the autocannons. And they are not quite elite, but they're definitely high-end units. In the meanwhile, we have the Merkavas, which are still rolling into position. And since these are all mechanized units, they're going to be a bit slower than the YP-408s, the motorized units. So for the moment, it's going to have to come down to the Dutch to try and hold this position. The Dutch at least are getting some mortar support in the form of 8 M113s. And these guys, between the 8 of them, can put down a lot of fire. Ammo might be a concern, because they only carry 63 rounds. Hopefully though, the Motorschützen have taken quite a beating. And with that, the Corps Mariniers can then push out and get them all killed. That would allow blue to hold this position for a bit, right up until the point where red comes in with units which have greater range. Oh, I'm playing this at point 50, I was wondering why the units were moving so slow. A couple of Motorschützen survive, but in the middle of town, the situation looks dire. Genietroepen have taken a lot of losses. Corps Mariniers are mostly okay, but against a quad stack of Legion 90, with those napalm launchers, this could be over very quick. Corps Mariniers are usually not a pushover, but against something like that, you're going to be struggling. Making matters worse, there's a group of Sappery moving into positions. Fire support from vehicles is usually not that bad, because it's hard to get them into position. But look at how easily the Legion are just wiping out the Commando Marines current, and probably the other Commando Marines are going to be next. And if you thought that was bad, there's more Spatsnaz around. So at the moment, blue is really getting pushed back here. And that's always my gripe with this deck, or sorry, with this map. It seems to favor Red 4 units. Because the Reds just have these really, really good infantry units that I still haven't really figured out a good defense against. Arguably, a Nighthawk or another heavy precision bomber can do quite a lot of damage against infantry. And in a game that's tactical like this, you don't get a lot of income, so it's going to be harder to replace if you lose a stack of these guys. But it's pretty easy for a Legion and any other sort of infantry to just avoid a Nighthawk. Because when you see a Nighthawk coming in, you can still jump from building to building. And if the Nighthawk is targeting the Spetsnaz here, and the Spetsnaz jump building, then unfortunately those bombs do not redirect. So your Spetsnaz would just escape unharmed. Already we have another Blue 4 player surrendering. The guy has contributed nothing to the team, 0 points. And, oh, that's not the only concern for Blue, because they are losing out on the right flank. Foxtrot is currently being overwhelmed by Reneko Yekeri. And the XA-185 KTs, which are over there, are also making life very hard for these guys. And moreover, they've captured the sector. So Red is now in control of another land reinforcement route. And they probably will send units down here, because it is so tempting to start picking off CV-90s. The CV-90s, with the Reneko Yekeri, well, the automatic might keep them at bay for a bit, but we're gonna need serious support here. Speaking of support, I'm not sure if you saw it over here, but there's a Luda, and any aircraft and any ground unit that gets too close is going to get a very, very warm welcome. Over on the left, we have Owner of Israel. He has been pushing with Achsarit, Merkava, and Rovait, and he has been able to successfully push back a couple of the Commandosi. Unfortunately, Zos is pushing, or not really pushing, but throwing down a lot of shells. And he did mark up, but Owner of Israel is saying, no, please don't. I need to be pushing here, and if you keep shelling my units, then I can't. Fortunately, the Achsarit, heavily armored, the same for the Merkava, they don't really care too much. So they should be ready to go and start pushing back. I think, however, he might be waiting for the other Merkava to get repaired. This one has thrown a track and is going to be back in 50 seconds. And yes, I do cough every now and then, but don't worry. As far as I know, I don't have the virus. I should be fine. It's just a remnant of a cough that I've had 2 weeks ago, and in my case it always takes quite a while for those things to dissipate. I can still be coughing 2 to 4 weeks after the actual cough started, which is really annoying, but there we are. Now Red's pushing up on all fronts. Red has been able to get the Reneko Yekeri, the Panzer Yekeri to push forward against the cavalry scouts. There are some Kustjäger left, but once you have the Spetsnaz and the Legion, and you survived all that, then there's still a bunch for Moses. And grenade launchers are another fantastic way of getting rid of infantry exceptionally quickly. And that's exactly what's going on. So the Kustjäger not really going to survive. This is always my gripe with the battle, or with this map that I mentioned. Let me know what your defense is against high-end Red 4 infantry like this. Let me know in the comments, what do you do against these? Do you bring arty? Do you bring airstrikes? Do you bring maybe units which can provide assistance at range? What's your tactic? What's your plan? Now at this point, Blue 4 is very much on the defensive. We still have Zos, which has now, the guy now has 10 mortars, which is not really that useful at this point in the battle, because there really isn't that much to shoot at. Or rather, there's a lot to shoot at, but nobody's spawning them. STR V103D being pushed back by a K52 and an M24D. The riflemen are bravely trying to shoot it down with an M16 and an M60, but these things are heavily armored and they don't really care for small arms fire. So in the meanwhile, Owner of Israel is, well, basically on his own. And this is something else that I want your opinion on in the comments. He's pushing up quite aggressively through the forest with tanks. That's why I named this episode, or this video, the most dangerous game. Because pushing through a forest with armor is one of the most risky things, in my opinion, that you can do in this game. Of course, if you have infantry which can provide the first layer of attack, and then a tank can back them up, that's better. But in this situation, Commandosi versus Rov 8 is not fair. Once the Merkava gets involved, it is definitely not fair, but not fair for the Commandosi, which really have no choice but to fall back. Anyway, what do you guys think of this tactic? I think it has some merit. It can have some merit, depending on how far he's going to be able to push through. You could argue that, no, he should not be pushing his units through, he should be bringing his units back. Bring them back through Delta, bring them back to Gulf, and try to assist in Echo. If that's your standpoint, then I wonder how you're going to be defending these units, because there are probably lots and lots of AT units around, or rather there can be. And because of that, it's going to be just as difficult and dangerous for those Merkavas to be operating in this area. So there's not really any good area of operations for these units to be in. I think over here he's actually in a pretty decent spot. He's able to support the Corps Mariniers and the Stoottroepen. And these guys are not really in a strategic position at the moment. But what these groups are allowing Blue 4 to do is get income from Delta. Without that sector, they're only getting income from Gulf. So, by having Delta more or less under control with the Stoottroepen and Corps Mariniers, they're at least able to get a decent amount of income. And they're going to need it, because Red 4 is knocking on every front that they have. They have a lot more income. They got Charlie and Echo and Fox, on top of the Alpha Zone and their Bravo Zone. So, Red 4 has a lot of income. And, however, that, of course, does not mean that Blue, or that Red's automatically going to win this fight. We've seen this before. You can have a ton of income, and if everybody uses that income to launch solo attacks, then there is a very good chance that everybody's going to die solo as well. Now, what does Blue have to defend this area? They got 10 Riflemen and 10 Fallschirmjäger. They have an LVKV-90, which is currently turned off very wisely. Corps Mariniers and Jaeger. In the main sector, pretty much nothing. We got an automatic, a bunch of command units, and 7 mortars, because some of them have already been taking, I think, return fire, and he has lost a few. These units are going to be quite important to at least shell units which get too close, but beyond that, in a direct fire role, they're not useful at all. All they have is the MG3. Now quickly switching over to the guy over here with the tanks. The Achsarids, excellent units also to scout against enemy transports, because they're basically immune. 10 frontal armor, 6 side armor. Against BTR-90s, they might eventually take a hit, because the closer you get, the more damage they do. There you go, one of them got killed. But against something like a Formosa unit, well, the Formosa don't really have a leg to stand on if you're looking at them, or if you're trying to put them up against an Achsarid. This thing is designed, from what I know, to go up against infantry, go into an urban area, and just push out units or deliver units. Against a group of Commandosi, you're going to have a bit more of a struggle, because that's something that is definitely capable of penetrating the armor on the Achsarid, if they survive for long enough. These things do have 10 armor, so you're going to take, I think, 2 or 3 hits before you go down from the Commandosi. But there are a lot of Commandosi. So for now, he's able to do a bit of damage. And maybe more importantly, he's able to distract. He's able to keep some of the Red 4 players occupied in this sector. Because if they don't do anything against the Merkavas, then what Red 4 might encounter is that these Merkavas suddenly pop up here in Bravo. Which wouldn't be the end of the world, because I haven't seen Red 4 use that many planes yet. And they still have this other reinforcement sector. But it would of course be a blow to morale, and mostly a blow to honor. And again, the tanks over here are suppressing and killing off enemy units which are trying to cross. So Earl British over here is trying to get his BMP-2s back into cover, but the Merkava 3B is not allowing it. We do, however, seem to have a bit of a fuel issue, as these Merkavas are running on 254 out of 1400 and 329 out of 1400. The Oshkosh is quite close, And unfortunately it's only providing spare parts and not fuel. XA-180 Musti comes in. I'm not sure if it got killed off. I don't think so. That one definitely did. Another Merkava shot. And here's another 30 Commandosi. They do fire their RPG, but I think they missed. Just look at how quickly these guys get nailed by the main gun and the grenade launcher. That is such an excellent combination of weapon systems that most infantry in smaller portions don't have a lot to do against it. You can hope to overwhelm a Merkava with a lot of infantry, but that's kind of the point. You're gonna need a lot of infantry. Over here, Colored Panther. For reasons which I don't quite get, he's trying to push. He's trying to get his Corps Mariniers far forward. Maybe to temporarily knock out a CV over here and relieve some pressure by killing off a bit of income. But what's mostly happening is that the Corps Mariniers over here are getting hunted down with the Spetsnaz. And these guys are about, well, they're about to run into what I think could be the command infantry unit. But beyond that, they're gonna be struggling to kill it. Because they don't have the numbers anymore. So he's trying to fall back. And of course at that point, well, he's gonna get locked in by the command infantry itself and the Erics. And potentially all other surviving infantry, insofar as it's not too far forward. And he just lost all of his infantry there. Red 4 immediately, or in the meanwhile, has deployed a Shanghai, which is an interesting choice here. It's a really cheap ship, and considering that this is mostly infantry fights, this ship can actually be quite a nuisance. Those machine guns and the stats don't really do it justice, I think. Because it says it has these dual type 37s and dual 61s. But I'm seeing two duals. So the dual type 61s, if I'm not mistaken, are the ones on the bow and the stern, but you also have these two on the port and the starboard. And it should say 2 times dual type 61 and 2 times dual type 61 37mm. Anyway, you do not want to get infantry close to this Shanghai because it will mess them up. Not that Blue 4 has any infantry. They have very, very little over here. Still a couple of the mortars. It looks like they might have lost a few more mortars at this point. Defensive infantry is not found, although there is a Humvee coming in. 2 Humvees, in fact. And they could be deploying a bit more. Now, here's the Shanghai in action. Going up against a group of Jaeger, or 2 groups of Jaeger, in fact. But it's getting too close. And while this thing has a decent amount of hit points, it cannot sustain RPG after RPG. But unfortunately, the explosion of the Shanghai is so violent that it immediately wipes out all the Jaeger anyway. So a bit of a weird way to go, but, well, I suppose you could say they kind of got him. In the meanwhile, Zus with his mortars is, and I don't quite get why, he's killing, or he's trying to do damage to the Luda. Sure enough, it's going to give you points, but wouldn't holding your fire and making sure that you have ammo later on be more efficient? Because the fob over here is almost empty, and this one still has a bunch of supplies, but you might need those to defend the fob. Over on the left, we have Owner of Israel, and he is struggling a bit now, because Red 4 is pushing harder on him. He still has the Arsarit. Fortunately, the Merkavas have been refueled and, well, mostly repaired, at least this guy, but the other one not so much. Another group of Commandosi appears. Look at that. That was 15 guys. And now it's 3. There's another group of Commandosi. The way that he handles this situation over here is really, really good. Using the Arsarit mostly to draw fire, but unfortunately, that Merkava was not looking in the right direction. And I think the Commandosi got a side shot on them. And that was the end of one of the Merkavas, leaving just the one wounded Merkava behind. These Commandosi, sure enough, are taking a hell of a pounding. They are falling back, but there is quite a bit more hiding in this forest. I won't switch to neutral because I want to see what exactly he's been able to kill at the end of the game. But it is not a great situation to be in, because now he only has 1 Merc. So his infantry killing ability has been reduced significantly. The Machbet's empty, or near enough empty. So he'll not quite exactly be able to resupply these things. Especially repair is going to be important, as ammunition and fuel are okay. But beyond that, he has 1 Merc and 2 Arserits 2 of those have been damaged. Ammo supplies are looking okay at about 40% for one and 90% for the other. But it's still a really risky position. He has, however, been able to do 465 points, and we're going to see that number go up. Now, I don't exactly know why Red 4 doesn't push. Because there's really not that much that Blue 4 can use against any push. What Blue 4 has is a bunch of riflemen. They have Panzer Grenadiers, so the standard ones, not even the Panzer Grenadier 90. Jaeger base, and there's another Artillerie coming in. There's also a fire support group coming in. But I'm not seeing any sort of long-range firepower. So any sort of ATGM is utterly missing. Now, decent explosion there. Killed a couple of cargo trucks. Potentially heavily damaged another tank over here, T-72 M1M. But this is kind of what I was waiting for. For Red 4 to start coming in with tanks. And not so much down the road, but a tank offensive coming in from over here would be very effective. Because Blue 4 does not have anything beyond, I think, a 700 meter range defense unit that can deal with armor. What I'm also quite... I haven't discussed it yet, but I saw a lot of Blue 4 jets. Blue 4 is flying around with a couple of Tomcats, and I also saw somebody else flying around with a couple of Eagles. That's a lot of points, and that's all the points that they currently are not using on the ground. Now Colored Panther is once again trying to push out, trying to get more kills and keep the enemy at bay. And unfortunately is being more or less pestered by this Chongju. The Chongju capable of firing 85mm rounds, which do 4 HE. Rate of fire is quite low. But they also have ZPTU-2s, which do a lot of suppression damage. And can pretty quickly panic enemy infantry units. And right now it seems like it's just taking pot shots at the FOB. Which is a bit of a nasty tactic, but not a bad idea, because if you deprive the enemy of their supplies, then eventually they're just going to starve. Right now, Owner of Israel has lost another Artillerie. His, believe it or not, his Pikud is also on the front line. But now the situation is growing really dire. He kills another transport. There is a group of Formosa that's pushing. You got another kill on the move from the Merkava, which is falling back, but it's down to 1 hit point. Artilleries are all gone. The Merkava 1 is running out of fuel. The Machbet can still do a load of damage. Especially with the Vulcan, you can wipe out infantry pretty quick. But he is just not able to hold this position, so he's falling back, hoping to find another defensive position elsewhere. And as desperate as the situation might be looking for Blue 4, they're actually quite close in points. They're 3610 for 3675, so they're doing really quite well. I don't get this. Why are we seeing a Wild Weasel? A Wild Weasel is a 100-point unit. In this case, I have only seen... what was it? A Nighthawk? And I really haven't seen that much Red 4 anti-air units, especially radar guided. So, a few reasons why a Wild Weasel is a bad idea. First, there's not a lot of Red 4 AA that we know of. Second, killing off enemy Red 4 or any Red 4 anti-air is not really a priority because Blue 4 is not operating that many planes. Red 4's planes are pretty much absent, so the Tomcats and the Eagles don't really need to do aggressive sorties. Which currently they can't, because there's a Hypnerid and there's the ship over here. And then, beyond that, you want to be shutting down enemy anti-air, mostly if you're running a lot of airstrikes. And they're not doing that. So I don't really get why Blue 4 is running, or Jimmy Bela, for example, specifically, why he's running with a Weasel, because it just does not make sense. Now... in the forest we have a very dangerous contender here. A Twardy has shown up. It looks like the Merkava was able to get a shot off. The Merkava... no, the Twardy fires again. Merkava is now on 1 hit point. To make matters even worse, there's 90... sorry, VDV 90 coming up. So this is going to be probably the end of the Merkava 3. He's done 485 points with these units. And so far been really quite effective with them. If not just to kill off a couple of units, then in order to distract. Have Redford dedicate units to this area. He's now getting some support from Colored Panther, who's sending in a couple of Jaeger. And these Jaeger have a decent anti-tank weapon. It's not going to be killing those that enemy. Why is the screen shaking like this? It's not going to be killing off that enemy tank in one shot, but it especially will do quite a lot of damage. There you go, against the BMD-3s. So there's 10 points, there's 25. Here comes the Ranico, more Commandosi, and there's the Twardy again. If these Jaeger bunch up together, they might kill the Twardy, but, well, they're a little busy trying to take out enemy infantry first. The Merkava 3B has been repaired at least a little bit. It's trying to deal damage, there you go, against the BMD-3. The infantry's dead. Achsarit is pushing forward, potentially as a sort of shielding unit, because it's the only thing that can really tank the enemy infantry, especially the Formosa for a bit. Trying to get pressure off of the Rovait. The Jaeger are dead. The Rovait with their M72 Law is just laughably bad against the Twardy. So it's going to be down to the Merkava to try and kill that, which is risky, and especially with artillery launching at it. This could be... just blanking on the unit name there. Buratino, I think that's what it is. And the Buratino wipes out the Oshkosh, it wipes out the Achsarit, and it wipes out the command unit. It also panics the Merkava 3, and the Machbet is very much panicked, so these guys are going to have to fall back. They're running out of ammo, they're running out of health, they're running out of grenades. They really don't have a lot to do. The Machbet, however, on the way out, takes out another helicopter. And it might be able to do the same thing over here with the MI... Actually, with the... look at that. Double kill. 40 point here, 45 point there. And that's already a refund on the Machbet, point-wise. Colored Panther saying retreat back to base. Because it's simply not possible to hold on to this sector anymore. It is too risky. Surprisingly, back at base, Blue 4 is still here. And Red 4 really hasn't launched that much of an offensive. I haven't really seen a large swath of Red 4 units just converge on this position and start to kill it off. And for some reason, Blue Alchemist over here is pushing with Charioteers. Now normally I would say, why the hell would you want Charioteers? But in this case, they might actually be useful. Because all you need is a medium gun. And a bit of standoff range. And something that spots the rifleman so that you can start shooting it. That's pretty much all that you need. There's the Buratino. The culprit that we have seen earlier. Which is trying to kill off the remainder of the forces over here. By some miracle, the Merkava 3B is still here. The Machbet is still here as well. It has survived and is being completely... actually, it's recovered. It's no longer panicked. The Merkava 3... I think he might be trying to kill off a couple of units in the town. With whatever the tank has left. 10 rounds of ammo, 55 grenades. And those grenades go very, very quick. That's 120 rounds a minute rate of fire. So in half a minute, this thing is going to be empty. There's another kill, 5 points only. It's not stellar, but anything that gets killed off over here could be the points that Blue 4 needs to at least bring this thing to a draw. Machbet is driving into the forest. Bit of a risky venture, because you don't know if Red 4 has already crossed the river over here, because they can with amphibious vehicles. And then drop off the infantry here and start scouring these woods. So at any point in time, this Machbet could be jumped by an enemy AT team, or just an standard infantry squad, and get killed off. The Merkava, well, it's on the other side of the bridge, and as bruised and battered as it is going home. Or at least, it was, until the Spetsnaz started to push. And unfortunately, thanks to the terrain, the Merkava is not quite able to assist. And by the time that it's back into a position from where it could assist, the Spetsnaz has already retreated. And now Red 4 is just constantly pushing on these guys. And this is the ship, this is the Chongju. The Chongju has those rocket artillery batteries, and they are stunning and panicking Blue 4 units over here. Making them pretty easy pickings for the Red 4 units which are now pushing in. Such as the BMD-3, But there was also that V-Horse still somewhere around. Infantry squad pushes up, at least one. Probably another one coming in soon. The Macbeth and the Merkava are in a position from where they might be able to provide support if they can get a line of sight. And the Merkava does get a line of sight. It fires once, pushing the Spetsnaz group back into a position of cover. There you go, that's another 3 killed. 2 guys left. Fires again. Spetsnaz grew down. Alright, that's 1 concern less, but don't worry, there's a hell of a lot more coming in. Formosa, VDV, Commandosi. They're all pushing on a bunch of very panicked and very worried Jaeger and Führungsgruppe. And beyond that, whatever infantry there was left in that town. Unfortunately, as the Merkava 3B tries to support the infantry, the Twardy gets a surprise shot in and kills it off. That leaves just the Macbeth as the forces from Owner of Israel. He also has a wounded Achsarit, but it's no longer in the conflict area. It's trying to pull back. Blue, 4205 versus Red's 4305. This game can still go either way. It's really going to come down to how well Red 4 coordinates their own attacks. If they can launch one massive assault, then they will definitely get a lot of points. If they just pour in units one by one, or maybe not even pour in units and just sit there for the last 6 minutes of this game, then Red is probably not going to win this fight. Blue is circling over here with a couple of Eagles. Nice aircraft, but a bit useless at this point of the battle. And it looks like Red might be preparing for an assault. There's 30 Reneko Yekeri coming in. Blue has some defense in the form of the Bradleys. In case these guys try to push across, they will take fire from the Bushmasters. But Red not only has units over there, they also have units over here. Much to the disagreement of the Macbeth, which just takes on, or enables the Vulcan and wipes out both the transports. The question is, and exactly there, where is the infantry? And the infantry comes out avenging the kills on their transports. That leaves Owner of Israel with just 1 Achsarit. It's taken a lot of battle damage, but it's still here. And here comes the Red 4 offensive. They smoke up. Renekos are pushing through. What's standing in their way is a group of light riflemen, and Deckungsgruppe. The riflemen engage. They might be able to pin down or at least nail some of these guys. And I think that... What stunned these guys? Because it's not the Buratino, as far as I'm concerned. The Buratino fired too far away. This was a bad coordination. It's almost like Red 4 stunned their own units, because there's no way that the guys who were here stunned them that quick. There's the Buratino still moving around. Renekos are now falling back, having lost about half their guys. So these are going to have to get quite a lot of resupplies. But don't worry, there's more. Commandosi are pushing through, and now the riflemen have no more cover from their own buildings. What else is going on? Well, the right flank's under assault. Commandosi, Sappersy, and Topaz. Jaeger, Panzer Grenadiers, and Stoothoop are trying to hold the line. Commandosi are down. Topaz is down. Sappersy, not really a risk until they're right up in your face, at which point they start using the RPO Reese. At this point, they might still be able to kill them off before they get into range. Blue 4, 4430, Red 4, 4745. They're being assaulted from every which way. Right side is being pushed on by infantry and charioteers. The, let's say the front is being pushed in by Commandosi. And the left over here is being probed by transports. But at least over here, the guys still have some defenses. The Chung is sending out another rocket artillery salvo, trying to get the guys who are over here spawning immediately stunned or panicked, at least less combat capable, so that the Commandosi are going to have an easier time pushing in. There's also... well, that's just an MI2, I think. That's not really a risk. Hypnorid comes in. Not really a dangerous unit in normal situations. In this case, if you leave it alone, it's going to use that machine gun or double machine gun to start wreaking havoc on any infantry that gets detected. 4485 for blue, 4775 for red. 3 minutes left. Red's now also pushing in from here. They tried to send in an aircraft. Blue immediately swipes into action, Tomcats and Eagles alike, and they kill off all the aircraft. 4705 versus 5210. Red is now ahead by 500 points, and that could spell the end of it. Wild Weasel once again pushing in, taking anti-air fire from this forest. I wouldn't be surprised if that's Eric's or another infrared anti-air unit. Fortunately, the Weasel makes it out, because that would have been another 100 points that Blue Fort just cannot afford to lose. Bertino looks like it's still reloading, so this one at least won't put more pressure on the infantry, but don't worry, the infantry have, well, enough to worry about as is. The Charioteers, having taken a position close to the forest, or close to the town, they're ready to strike. Good amount of rate of fire, decent HE at 3, lots of ammo, but they don't have a target. Fortunately for the Bedouins and the Jaeger and the Panzergrenadiers, they're still holding their position and they're not being detected. But that's about to change. As a quad stack of XA-180s is coming in. There's Promet coming in, there's another full stack of what I think is Commandosi coming in. These guys are going to get detected and they're going to get pushed. And the other side from Red 4 is also on the move. More Commandosi. At this point the Bradleys have already taken damage, and insofar as they dare to move, they're getting attacked by ATGMs from the front. So there's nothing that these guys can do. LSDR 40 are pushing in. Red 4 currently 53-35 for 48-60. If Red 4 can get another 130 points, they will win this. And it looks like they will. Because there's a lot of Reneko, but look at that airstrike. I'm not even sure what sort of jet that was, but it was from Owner of Israel. And he was able to wipe out quite a few units, putting Blue 4 at almost 5,000 points. But at this point, Red 4 only needs 45 points. And as desperate as the defense from Blue 4 is, it's just not enough. They won't be able to hold. And there you go. Red 4 has conquered 5,500 points. That was a hell of a game. Lots of defenses being thrown up by Blue. These guys really fought till the bitter end, and I salute them for it. Well done. Owner of Israel, with the tanks in the forest, 10,040, sorry, well, 10,000, no, not really. 1,040 points and 740 points in losses. He was able to kill off quite a lot of units in that forest. And just have a look at the kill list down here. Merkava 3B killed off a bunch of transports, including dangerous BTR-90s. Formosa, more transports, a BWR-1D recon unit, more BTR-90s, Scots, Commandosi, Spetsnaz GRU. The other Merkava not quite as successful, but it might have softened up units so that this Merkava could then get the kill. BTR-90s, Scots, Commandosi. The Achsarites, don't underestimate these guys. VDV-90, Reneko 90, dangerous units. Macbeth was able to kill an Mi-28, an Mi-2, a transport helo, a couple of transports. Oh, and I misidentified these apparently because I thought that the Commandosi would come out of these, but these are North Korean units, so it's not the Commandosi that came out of these. It was a different unit, and the Commandosi just happened to be in the right position in order to intercept. And beyond that, the La Vie, that was the last unit that he sent in, was able to kill 2 squads of Reneko and a bunch of XA-180s. Most of his losses, well, it's not really able to attribute that to any one unit class. Of course, infantry is going to be responsible for quite a few of these kills. Commandosi, some VDV. The Bertina was able to wipe out quite a few higher value units, including the CV. The Twardy, I think the Twardy really only got 1 kill on him, but it was a painful one at the loss of the Merkava 3B. So, the most dangerous game. Arguably he did not win it because he lost his forces, but you could also argue the other way that he did win it because he got more kills than he got losses. So that was Owner of Israel with his Merkava 3Bs. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. What sort of defense do you set up if you're playing Ones in Harbor? What sort of units do you throw into the fray to make sure that your Blue 4 infantry can stand up to Red 4 assaults? Because there is just so much firepower that those guys can bring to bear. And Blue 4's infantry is just, well, not great. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you soon for more Wargame Red Dragon.